Yeah, the only votes I think he's going to get are from people who misclick when they vote.
Have you ever wanted a podcast that did it all? Sports, politics, world events. Well, you have come to the right place because you are listening to C&C Talks.
Hello, I'm Colin,
And I'm Charlie.
and welcome to the C&C Talks podcast. We're now on episode 19 of our second season, Charlie.
Yep, we are taping this on Monday, June 5th, 2023 at about 6 p.m. And just a reminder, as we do every week, we release every Wednesday, and we talk about politics, world events, and sports.
And coming up on our first block, we're going to be talking about the debt ceiling deal, which has now been finalized. Talk about a potential Trump indictment coming up in the next few weeks. We'll be talking about the GOP primaries, which continue to get more and more interesting. The implosion of CNN. We'll talk about the Ukrainian counteroffensive, and we'll just wrap up the election in Turkey. But Charlie, let's start with that debt ceiling deal, which is now passed both chambers of Congress, which is a new development since the last time we talked, and has been signed by Biden.
Yeah, there was a lot of thoughts that this was going to go through, and indeed has. This stops the U.S. from defaulting on its debt and pushes that limit to after 2025. So, after the 2024
the next Congress.
Which after 2024 will be crucial depending on who wins the 2024 election. Some things we will talk about later in the politics section may affect that, actually. But it is crucial this deal got done. It is good to see that we finally did get some compromise between McCarthy and Biden. It is interesting to see who got what. It is definitely easy to see that the Republicans could have definitely gotten more of what they asked for. But it is also to see that it is kind of a defeat for the Democrats that they had to give up anything at all to pass the debt ceiling bill.
Yeah, I mean, credit. I'm actually shocked I'm saying this, but credit to Kevin McCarthy for actually being willing to come to the negotiating table and do something. I do think that part of the reason that Biden was able to get out as much, or stop the Republicans from getting as much out of it as people imagined that the Republicans might get out of it, is because Biden basically saw right through the Republicans and saw, they're not actually going, or at least the majority of the Republicans are not actually going to allow the country to default. So they don't have the leverage. I do. And that, leverage is the most powerful negotiating tool, Charlie.
Well, obviously, if you have the leverage, you control the pace, tempo, and what's going on with the situation.
Yeah. And I think also something really interesting is who voted for this bill and who didn't, because what you saw is it did pass fairly comfortably in both the House and the Senate, but it was mostly the middle parts of each party that was voting for it. The far rights and the more progressives, they were not fans of this bill, Charlie, and a lot of far left Democrats did not vote for it. A lot of far right Republicans did not vote for it. In fact, most, I would say, of the far right Republicans did not vote for it. In fact, more Democrats voted for it than Republicans.
Yes, and that is interesting to see, because one of the huge exceptions to that was Marjorie Taylor Greene, who actually happened to vote for the bill, which was a surprise to me.
Yeah, someone who did not vote either way was Lauren Boebert. She actually missed the vote. She said afterwards that she didn't vote out of protest, which is odd, but even more odd when you consider the fact that there's video of her running up the Capitol steps right when the vote was closing to try to go cast her vote, and being told by reporters that the vote had closed, and she seemed very disappointed by that, which makes you wonder, what was she doing? She knew that there was a vote. She was just not there and not doing her job.
Maybe she set her alarm wrong or something.
Who knows? It'll be very interesting to see.
Guy, absolutely no idea about the pending indictment of Donald Trump.
Yes. So Trump is still under numerous investigations. We know his trial has been set for March of 2024 in the investigation in New York. Now it looks like really any day he could be indicted by the Department of Justice for the whole classified documents thing. We don't know exactly what those charges may be, but there's thoughts that he might be indicted under the Espionage Act, Charlie.
Yes, because there was some news in Mar-a-Lago about some people surrounding him flooding part of the building to destroy some evidence.
Yeah, I mean, really, really weird. Mar-a-Lago in October, there was, I believe, a maintenance guy that was draining the pool. It somehow flooded the room where a whole ton of technological stuff is stored, including surveillance footage, which the Department of Justice seems to be investigating whether it's actually intentional that they flooded that room to try to destroy that. And if so, that's evidence tampering, Charlie. That's a crime.
Yeah, it does seem suspiciously convenient that, oh, we made a mistake with the pool. It happened to land in the security equipment, which just so happens that might have had something that shows us stealing classified documents.
Yeah, I mean, you really just can't anything past these guys. They are a bunch of criminals, and they keep committing crimes. They're under investigation for basically all of their actions because somehow basically all of them have ended up being crimes.
And looking forward to this, does this really affect Trump at all in the GOP primary coming up for 2024?
Not in the primary, but it obviously affects him, like, legally, right? If he's charged with the Espionage Act, that's a big deal. That could be dozens of years in prison. He could be potentially looking at the rest of his life spent in prison if he is charged and convicted with that. And we could actually see an indictment this month. I think that's not at all outside the realm of possibilities.
And then as for his opponents in the GOP primary, Pence has now officially entered the race. How do you think his
Why?
are?
Zero? Wait, sorry, that's too high. No, he has no shot. Who does he think his base is? Who does he think is loyal to him? He's a nobody, and he's running for the nomination of the party that wanted to hang him. But why is he running? What's the point?
Yeah, the only votes I think he's going to get are from people who misclick when they vote.
Yeah, the GOP primary, though, filling up really quickly. We've already got Trump in, obviously. DeSantis is in the race. Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, Vivek Ramaswamy, Larry Elder, Asa Hutchinson. I think that there's probably a couple others. Very crowded field. Very few of them have a legitimate chance at winning. We could see Chris Christie. Actually, expect to see Chris Christie enter the race soon if he hasn't already by the time this episode comes out, as well as Doug Burgum, the governor of North Dakota. So it's crowded, and Charlie, that means the debates are right around the corner, Republican primary debates.
Those will be fun to watch because it'll see who is stupid and who's stupider.
I mean, yeah, so the first debate currently set for August 23rd on Fox News, where I imagine most of the debates will be held. It's Fox News. Republicans just announced, Charlie, the criteria to qualify for the debate, and I think it's fascinating. First of all, you have to have, I believe it's 40,000 total unique donors, including something like 220 different states. You have to be polling at least 1% in at least 3 major polls. And then what I think is really interesting is you have to sign a pledge to support whoever the eventual nominee is. What are your thoughts on that?
That's rather interesting because it seems like while they're going to debate about who the nominee should be, after that they're going to try to make a united front. Which, of course,
Yeah, I mean, we know that. Go ahead.
for the Republicans in 2024, they're going to need a united front if they're going to win.
Yeah, the Republicans have not really been unified in the last few elections, and it showed. Question: I believe that all of the candidates will, of course, sign this pledge. The question, they just want to end up on the debate stage. The question is, will they follow through with actually supporting the nominee, no matter who it is? And what would the consequences be if they don't?
Well, I can't imagine that they wouldn't, because after all, they're running as Republicans, and of course, I can't imagine that any of them like any of the Democrat alternatives. So I do think they'll support whoever the nominee is, not out of choice, but really out of convenience for their own beliefs. And as for
I get that, Charlie. Oh yeah, go ahead.
As for if they don't, I think that they would just immediately be excluded from anything going on with the Republican Party.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I'm especially looking at Donald Trump for this. think that he probably will be the nominee, but if he's not, I can't see him actually signing a pledge because the only reason he cares about the Republican Party is because that's his best path to winning. If he loses their primary, I could see him just completely tearing down the party, potentially even running third party, right? Because he has no loyalty to the party or really to anything or anybody. And the question will be, is there anything that, are the Republicans actually willing to do something about it if he breaks that pledge? Probably not. They've shown themselves unable to stand up to him for basically as long as he's been in Republican politics.
Yeah, most certainly. And as you said, we can't imagine that he wouldn't be the nominee. But yeah, if he is
looking more and more likely by the day.
But if he isn't, it'll be interesting to see how he and the Republicans proceed, because I could definitely see him doing rather well as a third-party candidate.
Yeah. Now, as for who the eventual Republican nominee will face in the general election, it's almost certainly going to be Biden, right? There's people out on the fringes that are saying, but Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but Marianne Williamson, don't take those people seriously. There's no reason to. Those are not serious candidates. Then they don't pose a serious threat to Biden, especially since Biden has the backing of the DNC, which ultimately holds the power in these situations.
Well, we shall see.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild ride over the next however many months. I think something like 17 months until the election, and we'll bring it all to you all here on the C&C Talks podcast.
All right, now to some more chaos. Good old CNN. Give me a little bit more about what's going on with them and how the collapse for them continues.
They're dead. They're dead. They are regularly losing in the ratings to Newsmax, Charlie. They're averaging basically no viewers at the moment. All under the new ownership of Warner Brothers Discovery and under the leadership of CEO Chris Litt. There's just a bombshell article published in the Atlantic where Litt had sat down to do a bunch of interviews with the Atlantic. Don't look so great on Litt. Seems clear that yes, he was dealt a bad hand by the Warner Brothers Discovery owners, but it's not like he's played that hand well. He's made a bunch of decisions regarding on-air personnel, regarding the Trump town hall, that have just not been well received inside the company. A lot of staffers at CNN are not happy with him, and it's unclear if he will survive at CNN right now. There's talks that he may be kind of forced out in the next few weeks, which would be shocking given the success that he's had in his career. He created Morning Joe, the obviously insanely successful MSNBC morning program, created CBS This Morning, a pretty successful program, and he was the showrunner for like 8 years, seven or 8 years on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, which was for a very long time the #1 late night show in all of television.
Yeah, and it is interesting to see how much of a failure that it's been at CNN for him and the rest of the leadership. It's honestly been kind of surprising, but
Absolutely.
for those who, by the way, who don't know, Newsmax isn't news. It's just conspiracy theories.
Think Fox News, but a lot farther to the right.
And a lot more nonsensical.
Oh yeah. No, they're crazy. For a time, it looked like maybe they were going slightly downhill as they were dropped by DirecTV, but then DirecTV decided to cave to the right wing, as they often do, and put Newsmax back on DirecTV. We ready to talk about Ukraine now?
All right. So it looks like the Ukrainian counteroffensive has finally indeed kicked off. The Ukrainians are moving in against the Russians on the front lines. We don't really have too many new things yet so far, but as the offensive has just started, but we will, of course, talk more about this as this offensive continues.
Yeah, and the U.S. Is apparently seeing some very positive developments for Ukraine and what's going on here. So this is, I think, we painted, I wouldn't say a bleak picture for Ukraine last week, but a kind of where does this go from here? I think that now, as we're seeing Ukraine, they're actually gaining a decent amount right now. Things are going a lot better for them.
Yeah, now the only question now is, can they sustain what they have with this offensive drive that they have right now?
I think it's going to get harder and harder, but yes.
To succeed.
Yeah, that is the question. And we touched on this last week, Charlie, but final results are in Turkey in that blockbuster election.
Yes, and Erdogan has now been sworn in as president for, I believe, the 5th time?
It's been many times.
So
more than there should have been. A lot more.
It's a big defeat for the opposition, who I think really had a good chance to win this election. We'll of course see when the next election comes up a few years down the road, if the opposition can yet again take the advantage and possibly take down Erdogan this time.
Or will Erdogan continue to move towards full-on authoritarian?
We shall see. In other news in the Middle East, there was a small and brief conflict between Israel and Egypt involving a few soldiers and a couple of police officers. There are 3 casualties for Israel, 1 for Egypt, but this is surprising to see considering the history between these two, which I think I will be doing an After Hours on at some point later this summer.
We will look forward to it. By the way, before we move on, one quick thing to touch on is that it is Pride Month. Obviously means something slightly different this year with all of the attacks on the LGBTQ community coming from the right in the last year, which we have touched on quite a bit on this podcast. We've not talked in depth about this so far this month, but this is something that we will talk about more towards the end of the month. We haven't officially made a decision, but we're probably going to be doing a special episode towards the end of the month, but we will let you know once we make a final decision.
And now for
Charlie,
which has been brought back again. Just here to remind you that this episode coming out on Wednesday, meaning yesterday, was the anniversary of the D-Day landings during World War II, an important turning point on the Western Front, the liberation of France, and the final defeat of Nazi Germany. So if you know anyone who is rather old at this point who contributed in this landing, why don't you give them a talk and learn exactly what happened from them? And I will, of course, be doing an episode on that when we talk about the History of Germany series when I get to World War II.
Yep, looking forward to that as well. This is the C&C Talks podcast. Thanks for listening as we move on to sports, a busy sports section, as always, with the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Finals now in full swing. We'll talk about MLB, unfortunately. Some big racing stuff, the Indy 500, Formula 1, and the PGA Championship, which is now a few weeks ago, but we were unable to get to it on last week's episode. So we'll talk about that as well. Charlie, how about we start with the NBA Finals?
Yeah, let's start with the NBA. Game 1 did not go the way many people expected. I think a lot of people expected Miami to keep it close. It was not close. Huge blowout win for Denver. And they really needed it.
They made me think, Charlie, that this series was over after game 1. It was that much of a blowout.
The Heat come back. The lead changes a couple of times, but the Heat end up grinding out a win in game 2, sending the series in a 1-1 tie back to Miami.
And it was a great win, game 2. I mean, great game, really.
This was a win by 3, despite Jokic throwing down 40 points.
40 points. Yeah, a great performance by him. Jimmy Butler, not a great performance, at least not until the fourth quarter. But the Heat, they did enough. Lot of things that we could talk about on that final play, which ended in a Jamal Murray missed 3 that would have tied the game, like why Denver didn't call a timeout, or why Miami didn't foul while up 3. But unfortunately, it doesn't matter now. We're on to game 3.
I would argue that the decision not to call timeout actually makes a lot of sense for Denver, because, of course, on the other side, for Miami, you have a very talented coaching staff that could scheme up a basically unstoppable 10-second defense there. So I think this decision not to call timeout, try to catch Miami off guard with a deep 3, was actually the right decision. It's just a shame that it was that close to going in, but didn't.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you actually might be right, because maybe then Miami would have actually decided, now we should probably foul. The Denver could have advanced the ball, but Miami, it was a 3-point game. Miami only had to play defense around the perimeter.
Yeah, and
anything inside was fine.
Before we move on, who do you have in the series now that we're 2 games in?
If Miami can win both games in Miami, I think that the series is over. They'll win, but I don't think that they're doing that. I think that the Nuggets are going to manage to steal 1. Let's go Nuggets in 6.
So your original guess was Nuggets in 5, and now you're Nuggets in 6.
Yeah, I felt a little bit more confident just seeing the way that Miami was able to bounce back in a tough environment on the road, did a comeback win in game 2, even up the series. I feel more confident in them, but I still don't think that they're going to have what it takes at the end of the day.
I believe I said the Miami would win in 7. Last week I might have said 6 or 7, but I'm going to stick with it. Give me Miami in 7.
That's fair. I respect that. On the Stanley Cup Finals, did we both pick the Panthers, Charlie?
Yes, and the series is already over.
It's 2-0 Vegas. Going back to Florida now. Game one looked like it would be close. It's tied 2-2 at the end of the second period. It wasn't. Vegas put up 3 goals in the third, 5-2 win. Then I believe it was a 7-2 win in game 2. Just utter domination.
Through 2 games, they have a goal differential of 8.
Yeah, it feels pretty over.
All right, let's move on to golf, everyone's favorite sport. Colin, what's going on in the
don't rip golf. Don't rip golf. I haven't ripped racing. I don't think. Someone can probably go check the tape.
Okay.
Have I ripped it on the podcast?
To our editors who are editing this, please, at some point over the summer, make a compilation of Colin roasting racing.
It probably will be a very short compilation, but whatever.
It'll be about 3 minutes, probably. Anyway,
I don't know. I'll roast the Indy 500. I won't roast F1. F1's fine. Yeah. Brooks Koepka won the PGA Championship, his 5th major now, which puts him in just elite company. Also the first major won by someone on the Live Golf Tour since the Live Tour started. So interesting element there. I think some people are using this to now legitimize Live Golf more. I think that they do actually have world-class players. I mean, they do, but also they do, and it's not just everyone's wash. I still think that the PGA Tour has the most elite golfers. We'll see, Live Golf has the problem, Charlie, of the fact that golf is not the main story on that tour.
Nope, that's the
Right? And I
facilities.
feel like that. Yeah, I feel like if you're a sports league, you need the actual sport to be the main story, and I feel like it's not what the NBA is, although the NBA has actually had success with all of the drama that comes with it. But golf, I think it needs to be about golf in order to do well. I mean, look at the ratings that Live Golf has over on the CW. They're awful. It's not great for them, but the PGA Championship, it was good. Looked close at the end. Koepka ends up kind of pulling away from the field in the last few holes. Doesn't give up the lead like he did at the Masters. Good win for him.
All right, let's move on to baseball in a miraculous turn of events that has been very unfortunate for me and Colin. Our baseball team is now apparently dysfunctional.
Yeah, I mean, it. I don't even know who to blame. I don't think it's upper management's fault. On paper, the team still looks like a good team, but everyone on the team, it seems, with the exception of Jared Kelenic, has underperformed expectations wildly. Like, everyone. Eugenio Suarez, Teoscar Hernandez, Colton Wong, AJ Pollock, even Julio Rodriguez. At least the offense. Pitching staff has done very good. Very well.
Is this just a matter of there being enough games for the talent to eventually show up?
I think that the talent will eventually show up. The problem is that they're currently, I think, 10 games behind the Texas Rangers.
Yes.
So it's going to be very difficult to make up that margin. I mean, I get that there's 4 months to go, but that's 10 games is not easy to make up. Even if you go on a 14-game winning streak, you're probably still 6 games behind the Rangers. And I think that the Rangers are overperforming as well.
All right, so now let's take a look around
closer
the
to the Rangers.
Let's take a look around the league now. The Rays continue to be great through the first few weekdays of June. They are 43-19. They are still continuing to cook. They're still 4.5 games ahead of the Orioles for second place in the AL East. The AL Central is the exact. Sorry?
I said it's absurd.
In the Central is the exact opposite. The Twins are the best team in that division, who are still hovering around 500, followed by the Guardians, Tigers, White Sox, and the Royals. In the West, the Rangers still lead, but the Astros have closed the gap. Meanwhile, the Angels and Mariners are battling for third, and the A's are the worst team in the league. Worst team that we've had, I believe, this far in the season through the 62 Mets.
Yeah, it's pretty pathetic. We've talked about this before. It's just sad. I'd love it if the Mariners could go to the NL Central, though, Charlie. That's a bad division.
Yeah, let's talk about the East first. The Braves lead that division, followed by the Marlins, who are a very big surprise this season. The Mets, if you told me that the Phillies at this point in the season would be 4 games under 500, I wouldn't believe you. They're 4th place, only in front of the Nationals, sorry. For the Central, they're led by the Pirates, whose gap is closed significantly to the Brewers behind them. The Reds and Cubs are scrapping it out for third, and the Cardinals are in last place. But they aren't too far behind the Reds and Cubs. As for the NL West, the Diamondbacks and Dodgers are both tied at 35 and 25, followed by the Giants, the Padres, and the Rockies lead out the NL.
Yeah, interesting. I feel like there's been a lot of players who have just completely underperformed expectations this year. Let's start with Trey Turner, Charlie.
No, he's just been awful.
He's been awful. Sandy Alcantara also, last year's NL Cy Young winner. Bad. I mean, the A's beat.
It has been very strange.
And then we can't forget about Alek Manoah, who does not look like a big league player at the moment. I think he probably just put too much pressure in his tires because they seem to have popped.
Maybe he should go to the Japanese minor leagues.
Yeah. Go listen to last week's show if you didn't understand that reference. Well done, Charlie. You want to talk about racing?
Yes, I do. Very briefly, before we get out of here. Formula One had 2 races while we were gone. Monaco, which of course is Monaco, so not much happened there. And Spain. Spain finally got rid of that really bad final chicane. If you watch Formula One, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now that that's gone, we can actually have a functioning main straight, meaning that there were a lot of overtakes in the turn 1. Great race. Of course, Verstappen won, because no one can stop him at this point. But the 2 Mercedes who brought upgrades to Spain got 3 and 4. The Aston Martins seem to be falling back a little bit. However, 2 weeks from now in Canada, they're bringing upgrades as well, which driver Fernando Alonso has said will crush the competition. So we will see if that indeed is true. And as for series that I don't actually tend to watch very much, IndyCar, the Indy 500 was 2 weeks ago. Great race there. Great final few laps. You can check out my Twitter to see me reacting to it after not watching that series in like 5 years. Very great race. Joseph Newgarden ended up winning on the final few seconds. Actually, final corner, in fact. That was a great race, stopping Marcus Ericsson from winning back-to-back Indy 500s. That's all from the racing front. Back to you, Colin.
Yeah, so before we get out of here, let's talk a little bit more about the NBA. We'll talk about the head coaching carousel. It's been wild that the Suns, who fired Monty Williams, have hired Frank Vogel, Charlie, and there is no way that that is an upgrade.
No, in fact, it is a very, very, very bad degrade.
Yeah, I feel like coaches at this point are just the scapegoats, and there's nothing much that they can do about them, but I think that it's basically like teams are like, something has to change. We need to be able to tell our fans we did something. Here's something that we could do. It's the easiest. It's firing our coach. We've got to do it. Right? I feel like that's what it's become. Now, Monty Williams does have a new job. It's with a team that probably won't be as good as the Suns next year, and that is the Detroit Pistons. Jolie, I think that is a very good hire for them.
Yes, and I'm confused. Probably gonna be better. The Pistons might be the worst team in the league next year.
I don't know, because you have to remember, I mean, we'll see if they still want to tank, but you have to remember Cade Cunningham was out basically the entire year. And
that is another point.
We are still waiting to see what's promised, but mostly that's just because of some bad injury luck. We'll see. I'm excited for what Cade is able to do next year. And then finally, the Bucks. They've hired Adrian Griffin, an assistant coach with the Raptors. Good hire, Charlie?
Yeah, I like this hire. I don't know why they fired their coach in the first place, though. It's one bad exit.
I mean, it was kind of 2 if you count last year. And
yeah, I
know that there's going to be some changes with that team. There's going to be changes with that team with all of the free agents that they have this offseason. They've got a lot of decisions to make right now.
And we'll see if that Bucks team can keep together.
Yeah, NBA draft coming up. I believe later this month, actually, like a week or so after the NBA finals. So it'll be interesting. Everyone knows who Spurs are taking number 1. Victor Wembanyama, of course. That'll be exciting to watch him play his rookie season next year. It just continues, Charlie.
It does. And with that, Colin?
All right. Yeah, make sure that you subscribe to C&C Talks podcast. Available anywhere that you listen to podcasts every Wednesday. And visit our website, cctalks.net, to learn everything about the show. You can also call us with your questions at 360-389-2630. And that's 360-389-2630. Or, of course, you can follow us on Twitter at CC Talks Podcast. For our producer, Morris, our production designer, Zack, and our proof editor, Drake, I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie. See you next week.
Thanks for listening, everyone.